Come on in, welcome to my home. Today we are doing a requested video where I'm going to talk about my plants, my successes, my kind of successes, and possibly my failures. But before we really get into this, you have to know this video was requested by my patrons on Patreon. We get a chance to talk about things, and if you've been watching this video or this channel for a long time, you would have seen the plants in the background. And my pride and joy, my aloe vera, which is just massive. But we will get into that really soon. But I'm going to do this in a couple stages, and because of the day, this is probably going to have to be a two-part video, because this video does have to go out this week, because next week starts some holiday videos that really do have to be made. And you're wondering, well, why would I think that this video has to go out? Well, it's because, well, outside is raining right now. And some of the plants that I have, which we're going to talk about, are actually outside. And normally by this time of the year, I bring those outside plants back inside because it's cold, it's frosty, they need to be inside. And instead this year, no, it's still pretty warm. So they're still hanging out outside, loving their life and everything. But we'll get to those. The first thing I want to cover are the plants and where they are and how this really works. Because there are a couple things to know about my place. One of them is I face south. My windows face south so that I get a lot, and I mean a lot of sunlight through the windows. In fact, this room is the only room which even has an overhang in front of the window, and it still gets plenty of light. However, you will notice that back there, well, of course you can't tell that because I do have a lot of artificial light going on right now. But back in the dining area, it is not that bright, so there are not plants there. But let's start in the office and we'll cover those plants. Now, my aloe vera and its, I guess you'd call them their pups, it is about 6 years old, and it came from just a single aloe vera plant that I just put into a pot. And then I did the wonderful thing of watered it. I mean, for me, there really wasn't all that much to taking care of this. It is an espoma potting mix originally. Then I transferred it over when I upped the pot into the cactus mix, because it is a cactus. It really is. So it does need a lot of drainage. It is in a terracotta pot, so that way if I overwater, the terracotta does help the soil to breathe, and it helps it dry out, so that way it's not sitting in water. That's a big thing about this is, when I first started doing my plants, I overwatered like crazy. And so my plants would just die. I mean, it was really sad. But instead, I am on a once-a-week watering regimen. It's really easy because on Mondays, which is what today is as I film this, I will rotate the plants a quarter of a turn, except for the aloe vera, which it got so big and so top heavy that I now only rotate it enough so that it will still keep facing so that it is pointing the opposite direction. I want it to start growing back towards the light and over the center of the pot, so I will only rotate it that much. I will add enough water so that it gets a thorough watering and then do basically nothing else. I have not fed this, I have not done anything else, just kept it watered once a week, and that's it. Good sunlight. I do have a water meter, and remember, everything which I talk about, it will be linked down below in the description, which I check the moisture level with sometimes. I'm not really good with that. I did have at one point a problem with gnats, so I did get some little gnat traps, which were just yellow sticky traps that I put down in the pots, which you do see occasionally. And that was it. That's all I have done with it. I mean, lots of people are like, how is it possible that your aloe vera is doing so well? Well, that's it. I did have to transfer the aloe vera into the terracotta pot that it's in. That happened about a year ago, and it was very big. Transferring it by myself was a huge endeavor, and I mean a huge endeavor because it was heavy. It took a lot of soil, And it's also part of the reason I haven't transferred my next plant. My next plant is my avocado. But now my avocado, I did start from a seed, and I did it the water method, which is one of the faster methods. However, it also doesn't produce as strong of avocados. And it takes a while. So those of you who are thinking about starting an avocado, just know it's going to take a long while. My avocado now I think is about 6 or 7 years old. And so I did it just the way you'd expect. I poked the toothpicks into the avocado, placed it partially submerged into the water with the flat side pointing into the water and then the pointy side pointed up, and then I made sure that it kept with water in a nice sunny location so that it was halfway submerged, and just waited for it to sprout. It took about 2.5 months before it started sprouting. Then I put it into a pot. Then I started making my mistakes. Okay, so the avocado has some problems going on right now, as you can see. It does have a leaf issue, which is a fungus, which I have to cut off the leaves without damaging the plant. It also looks like it has chlorosis, which means that it's not taking up as much iron as it should be. So I do have things to help with those issues, but we will talk about those as we get into this. Then we have the fact that I should have kept it trimmed better. The avocado, I just let it go until it almost hit the ceiling and then trimmed it down. Instead, what I should have been doing is, as it grew, I should have been trimming the avocado and making it bushier more towards the bottom and keeping it maintained than what it is now. Now, sometimes I do add extra sunlight because where I am, I have an artificial light. Where I am, it does get kind of dark in the evenings. Now, I think sunset now is at like 7 o'clock, and pretty soon it will be at like 5:30. So yes, I do have growing lights for the darker seasons, but most of the time I don't do that. I just let the avocado grow. And once again, it was another one of those things where it is in a cactus soil mix. I did add the citrus plant food to it, which I will tell you was a huge mistake, just simply because the plant food smells bad and you could smell it for a long period of time. It does need to be repotted because the pot, when I was first doing this, I don't know what I was thinking about. It needs to come up about 4 inches because it's way too far down into the pot, but I'm not going to do that until spring, simply because 1, I need extra help to do this, and 2, I don't want to shock it right now when it's in this really dark phase. I do not do anything else but water it also once a week and rotate it once a week. So that's that avocado. Now, I did decide I wanted to do another avocado, and this time I put it in the soil. So I'm doing the soil growing method, where I take the avocado, plant it into the soil, and then cover it, keep the soil nice and moist, not wet, just slightly moist. And now we're going to have to wait for a while to see how it sprouts. It should sprout in about 2 months, and this time I know what to do. This time I will keep it trimmed, and I will keep an eye on it. And yes, that's why I said this is going to be a many-part series, because plants are like that. Plants like to grow in things, and I think that's always really fun. Alright, so the next plant we are going to talk to that's inside right now is my Christmas cactus. You might have heard it called an Easter cactus, or I think they have Valentine's, Thanksgiving. Mine has its own mind. This cactus is about 8 years old. I got it from a coworker who had gotten it from a sales representative. He didn't want it, so I took it home, put it into a pot, which I shouldn't have put it into. It is a contained pot, which is just a glass jar, and I probably overwater it, but it loves its life right now. It is in the window in the living room. It has enough sunlight. It will bloom. Sometimes it blooms at Thanksgiving, sometimes it blooms at Christmas, sometimes it blooms at Valentine's Day. It just does whatever it wants. It is also on the weekly watering if it needs to be watered. Since it is in a clear jar, I can see how much water there is in there. Now, it does need to be repotted, and I'm sort of waiting on that so I can get some terracotta pots, because I want to put that also into terracotta pots. Just like my whole goal with everything is to get all of my plants into terracotta, because I think it breathes a little bit better and it lets it all, aerate and everything. Once again, I don't feed these things. I don't do anything with it. I just make sure that it's watered, make sure that it has sunlight, and of course rotate it every Monday like I always do with all of the plants. It, I think, really enjoys the fact that it has just enough sunlight. It does get the morning sunlight, but not the evening sun, because the sun doesn't come through that window that much because of the direction it faces. It is really doing quite well. I'll probably put more information about it down in the description, but this is one of those things that I love this plant. Now, in my bedroom, there's a Pothos plant. It could be a golden pothos. I do not think it is, but it could also just have chlorosis, which means that it's not getting enough iron, so the leaves are turning yellow. Just saw one of my plants blow down on the porch. That's why I sort of cringed. What it is just one of those plants that is a good low light plant. It is back beside my bed. It does get sunlight in the morning. The room is quite bright on a sunny day. Not necessarily today, but on a sunny day. I do just water that, and I do rotate it. But now what's interesting about this plant is it also was started from just a cutting. I got this from a friend of mine about 10 years ago. And none of these plants really did well until the last 5 or 6 years, when I really started paying attention to them. I wanted something in my bedroom, so I put it into the pot next to the bed and just started watering it, and it did really well, because originally it was in my office and it really didn't like life there. It likes life in the bedroom right there, sitting by the bed. Everything is up on saucers so that way it doesn't damage any of the furniture that it is on, but it's enjoying everything. The one thing I can tell you about your plants is if they don't look like they're doing well, move them. There might be a reason. Maybe they're getting too much sunlight, maybe they're getting too much water, maybe they're getting too much something. But having fun with plants usually involves a lot of experimenting, and I'm willing to experiment with the plants because I love doing that. Alright, let's talk about the plants outside. This summer I did pretty well. My tomato plant did really well. I got a lot of plum tomatoes off of it. My peppers did fairly well. I got a few peppers off of those, and those were banana peppers. Then I planted stevia, which I've got quite a few leaves to dry so I can sweeten my drinks with it. There is also basil out there and parsley, and those are in the big containers that I cannot move. Well, I cannot bring them in and actually let them grow. That's why I'm mentioning those. Also in those containers is a beautiful sweet potato vine, which I thought was really neat because I didn't know sweet potato vines actually bloomed. This sweet potato vine bloomed, and the one has gone all the way across the porch. The one that was in the pot with the tomato did not do that well. In fact, my marigolds and my tomatoes did not do that well because the tomatoes were hit by a tobacco hook caterpillar, I do believe, and it decimated, and I mean decimated, the tomato. Once I figured out what was going on and I got rid of the caterpillar, it was almost too late. And I figured that, so I didn't really do much because it was in September. By now we should be having, we should have had our first frost usually, and nothing. It's actually quite warm right now. Also out there, which is what I just saw blow down, is the Citronella plant, which I originally bought to keep mosquitoes away. It didn't keep mosquitoes away. Not really impressed with the Citronella. I probably did something wrong with it. I did my normal, kept it watered, rotated, and all those things. It just didn't like life where it was. So I don't think I will do that again. I will do the plum tomatoes again. I do not think I will do the marigolds, because the marigolds were supposed to keep away the anything which would attack the tomato. It did not. It did not do that at all. But let's talk about something which I find super interesting. That is my lavender. My lavender started 2 years ago? 2 years ago. And I actually wintered over the lavender in my bedroom. It was in my bedroom right by the window, and you're not supposed to be able to do that. Lavender is not supposed to be one of those plants that you can winter over. I did nothing to it. I did not trim it. I did not do anything. I just kept it watered, rotated it, and it did quite well. Now, this year I will do a trim on that, probably pretty soon, possibly even today, which is why this video is going the way it is, because as of right now, it's raining and it's windy, so I can't get out there to do what I was going to do, which was trim it, which I'm hoping I will be able to do in a few minutes. And then I will make sure that it stays all nice and watered. Now this year, it will go into my office, because the plants which I'm going to put in my office, which are outside right now, are the lavender, and then the rosemary, which is about 3 years old. Rosemary is also something you need to think about rosemary, about the fact that it is a mountainous plant, sort of, so it likes drier conditions. You don't want to have rosemary sit in water. So that way I just water it, make sure that it drains thoroughly. I have not fed the rosemary. Yeah, did not feed the rosemary. Then also out there are chives. I use chives a lot. I love the chives. Chives to me are one of the easiest herbs to grow. So the chives are nice, and they do need cleaned up every once in a while. And most of the times I just go through there with a pair of scissors and clean them up. I also have thyme out there. The thyme I use quite a bit. And once again, it is another one of those, I just snip it and clean it up as I use it, and just keep it watered. I make sure that it does not sit in tons and tons of water, and it will come inside. Underneath everything, which, because it does not need tons and tons of light, but I need the space for it, is a spider plant. The spider plant I got from a coworker when she was retiring, and it is probably another 8-year-old plant. It does, of all the plants that are outside, it does not look as good, because I didn't take as good care of it. Now, one of the things which I did have a problem with the spider plant last year were ants. I had ants everywhere, and I found out that the ants were coming in from a few places. One, they're coming in the soil that was in the plants. So this year I do have some spray that I've been weekly spraying the plants, so that way it will kill any bugs before I get them inside. And then also I found out that I had ants in the window in my office. So they were living in the window, because I rarely ever open that window. So one day when I opened the window, they had made a whole little colony in that window. That was interesting. It was surprising. So you can thank me for having you check your windows. But like I said, the interesting part about this is, normally what I would be doing right now is getting all of these things ready to come in, and we're not even close to that. For the next few weeks, yeah, the lowest it's supposed to go down is into the high 40s. That's not even time to cover the plants. The plants seem to be enjoying their lives outside. The only thing I'm going to have to take a look at is the light. Now, I will start thinking about if they need to be fed. I do have some plant food, but I'm not sure exactly if I want to feed them now when it is in the dark season. It's not truly their growing season. But those are the plants that I have, and those are the plants that I have overwintered. And now, I did take a cutting from my basil, and I'm trying to root that in water. We'll have to see how that goes. If you want to check and see the progress of these, you want to check out my social medias, which are at CM Coleman Home. On Instagram, I post on there at least once a day. I'm going to try to do more YouTube stories so that you can keep up with that. Now, I don't know about my parsley. The parsley I could very easily replant and bring it inside. However, parsley is not one of those plants that I use that often. So I haven't decided if I'm going to do that or not. I might, simply because one of the things which I do want to get into is I want to get into making like tea. What's really interesting is Mom has, which I'm going to bring in, somehow she got a mint growing. I think it is chocolate mint. I will not swear which mint it is. And it is doing well in a pot even. So I'm going to bring that in for the winter. Now, out there right now, which did really, really bad, they cleaned down the house, and on either side of my house, on one side I have what is normally mint, just regular, I think this is woolly mint, which you can use for mint juleps, or those sort of things. It usually does really well, but it did horribly after they cleaned down the house. Everything looks really dead. And then on the other side is lemon balm. Why am I telling you about these things? Well, because mint is something which is really hard to kill. It spreads like wildfire, and I mean like wildfire. It uses tap roots which go through everything. So when you plant mint, you need to put it in a spot that is contained, that you can house it so that those roots don't get out and go everywhere. The thing which is interesting is the lemon balm. Lemon balm spreads through seeds usually. The seeds of the lemon balm will also go everywhere, and you can notice that it's in with the you'll see that there are some lemon balm plants coming up with the thyme. There's lemon balm. I think the chives has some lemon balm in there. So it reseeds like crazy. Both of those things can be used in teas. They can be used in all sorts of things. And I do use those herbs quite a bit in the summer, not so much in the winter. Will I bring the mint in? Probably not, because I do dry it and have mint around so that I can use it whenever. But those are my main plants that I have. And you're saying, well, you're not really teaching us anything because you're not showing us how you kept them alive. No, I'm literally telling you how I kept them alive. I have just watered them, feed them very, very rarely, but I'm going to put them more on a regular schedule with some new plant food that I have. And then we will be able to watch them. And this is going to become a more regular segment because I love plants. I really do. If I had my way, I want to get a snake plant, and I think I put my snake plant somewhere over in there. Because I just love plants. I think plants are wonderful, but the one thing to remember is they need enough light. And in my house, light is something which is hard to come by. I have 3 windows, one which is right here in front of me, one in my bedroom, and one in my office. Those are my 3 windows. Those are the only spots. Now, my garage does get some light, but it faces north. One year I did have, what did I have? A tomato, which I did not cut down my tomato, and so it was growing out in the garage when I moved the big container in. What's interesting about this is when I do move all the containers in, which should be, I don't know when that's going to be because I don't want to move them right now because they're really doing really nice. It'll be interesting to see how they do. I did take the tomato down because the tomato was really in bad shape, and I mean super duper bad shape. So I cut the tomato down, put the tomato, I actually bagged that up, and we got rid of that simply because I don't know if there was some sort of disease, and it looked like there were some of the seeds. It looked like there were some of the I don't know what they are for. The larvae for the caterpillars, it looks like they could have been in there, so no, I didn't want to spread that to anywhere, put that in compost, so I made sure that I got the tomato all taken care of, and it won't be in a place where it could be spread to the other plants. Everything else, we're going to see, we're going to wait, but that's what is happening in my garden right now. I will keep you updated. We will be talking about, in the next video, we will be talking about the food, the chelated iron, and more along about the spraying. But when it comes to the spraying, I just spray my plants with an organic pesticide once a week, so that way they are ready to bring in. Now, if you know anything about me, I am allergic to most pesticides, so I have to be very, very careful about this, and I have found that this pesticide I am not allergic to. It is linked down below in the description. Alright, so I think that's about it. I've rambled on and on about this enough. If you have other questions about things or ideas, or you have some ideas and say, hey, you should be doing this with your plants, let me know, please, down in the comments, because like I said, I love plants, I love learning about them, I love reading about them, and you're going to see more plants show up in my place. So let me know down in the comments. I hope you enjoyed this. Now, if you want to get this video, you want to help support the channel, you can join YouTube membership, where it is where you can then help support this channel, and you get early access to videos, you get to see some behind the scene pictures, or you could join Patreon, where we also have early access to the videos. There's a lot of discussion which happens over at Patreon. It is one of those great things to do. If you're not interested in either one of those things, another thing that you can do is like and share this video. Sharing the video also helps get the YouTube algorithms to get me out there to other places, liking it, commenting it, interacting with the video. That really does help. I love doing all of these. If you have any ideas for some videos that you'd like to see me do, let me know down in the comments, and I hope I get to see you the next time you stop by.